I urge
use.
my colleagues to support the Democratic Republic of Congo Democracy and Accountability Act of 2018. I especially want to thank Chairman Royce and Elliot Engel, the ranking member, for their very strong support of this legislation and for their strong statements today. I think this is, again, another example of bipartisan legislation and the House uniting over a very egregious situation that is occurring in the DRC. I would point out to my colleagues that, I have visited the DRC myself, been to Kinshasa, the capital, raised a number of human rights issues when I was there, but I also traveled to Goma, where there was terrible acts of bloodshed committed by both the government troops as well as those that were combating the government, and even terrible acts by the peacekeepers, the UN peacekeepers some years ago, where they were complicit in human trafficking, particularly of little children. In my subcommittee, I chaired 4 hearings on this horrible practice of the peacekeepers themselves causing such violence against kids. There's now a much better situation, but it's still awful. And again, we're now facing another serious crisis. I would also point out to my colleagues that Karen Bass and I, we had a trip planned to Kinshasa for August 24th and 25th. We made part of that trip where we went to Ethiopia, but we were denied visas. We could not get visas to go to the DRC because we wanted to raise issues with Kabila himself with regards to the election and human rights abuse. We were denied that by not getting a visa. This bill could not be more timely. Indeed, there is an urgent need to focus attention on the DRC, a strategically located, resource-rich country which has been misgoverned for much of its history and, again, is in crisis today. The wonderful people of the DRC deserve better, far better than they have gotten from the Kabila regime. Next month, just before Christmas, the country is scheduled to vote to replace Joseph Kabila, who has retained power in defiance of constitutional term limits for some 2 years beyond his mandate. Right now, there is talk of further postponement of the election, which would accord with Kabila's desire to postpone transfer of power for as long as possible. If such delays occur, it would be attributable to the obstacles placed by the Kabila government to holding a free and fair election. This bill before us today shows congressional resolve that there be accountability and codifies 3 executive orders by 3 presidents, President Bush, President Obama, and President Trump. It points out that there needs to be significant progress towards holding free and fair elections, or else they will not be lifted, and does so for 7 years. And we're talking about respecting fundamental freedoms of the press, expression, and assembly, as described in the December 2016 St. Sylvester Agreement and in UN Security Council Resolution 2348. It also points out that there needs to be, in the legislation, free and fair presidential elections in accordance with the Constitution of the DRC, and a democratically elected president has been sworn in and taken office. It also supports the humanitarian and accountability efforts of civil society groups pushing back against civil strife and political repression. In particular, it acknowledges the role of the faith community and the Catholic Church, which educates and heals the Congolese people through its schools and hospitals, while upholding the need for the rule of law and respect for constitutional principles in the DRC. Indeed, the Congolese Conference of Catholic Bishops, known as CENCO, has played a singular role in promoting restoration of democracy and respect for fundamental civil and political rights, including brokering the December 2016 St. Sylvester Agreement. Mr. Speaker, this is a critical time for the DRC. We have an emerging Ebola crisis in the eastern part of the country, and I would note that over the weekend our embassy in Kinshasa was forced to close due to credible and specific terror threats. The embassy will remain closed at least until tomorrow because of those threats, and perhaps even beyond that date. That we are hurtling towards a political inflection point within the next month, which will either mark a turn towards proper constitutional governance or a downward spiral towards growing chaos and bloodshed. I urge support for the bill and reserve the balance of our time.